Yo, it's your favorite table condiment Mayo Man, and I am back. And today we are going to react to the new Elden Ring edition, new Elden Ring expansion. I'm sure some people have already seen it, but this is new to me. Let's get it.
Follow me! I'm
It's funny, in my first playthrough of Elden Ring, I distinctly remember reading this message left by another player. Fortnite. Turns out it was a prophecy, because Elden Ring NightReign is kind of like Fortnite. Okay, I'm just kidding. Kind of. I mean, you drop in from the sky at the start of the game, and you have to outrun a circle closing in around you, but that's where the similarities end. Thankfully.
Yeah, I had a feeling. I had a feeling that was like the walls closing in type shit. Okay, so how's it gonna play?
A ton of articles that you might have missed have actually come out about the game, and in this video I'm going to try and get everyone up to speed.
Seekers of redemption, you were chosen, thrown together by forces beyond our control.
So, From Software has actually never done anything like this before. They've spun off the Elden Ring IP in a way that they think justifies a standalone Elden Ring title that you'll be able to purchase and play sometime in 2025. And it will exist in complete isolation from your other copy of the game. In a phrase, NightReign is a PvE co-op survival rogue in complete isolation from your other copy of the game. In a phrase, NightReign is a PvE co-op survival roguelike souls-like with some battle royale and extraction elements as well.
Okay.
And you know, that sentence tells you everything and nothing at the same time.
Pretty much, man.
Let's break it down.
Yeah.
With special thanks to the journalists who have played a demo of the game and written about it, I'm going to try and walk you through a typical NightReign session from beginning to end,
please.
Starting with the selection of your character. In NightReign, you don't create your own character from scratch. Rather, you'll be picking from a selection of 8 preset Nightfarers, each with their own strengths, weaknesses, abilities, and ultimates. And these characters form the foundation upon which you'll build, collecting different weapons and buffs within each session to make your character unique. To start, this is Wilder, and they're the titular character of NightReign. They'll always start with this large longsword equipped, but what's way more important than this character's weapon is their ability and their ultimate. Their ability is the claw shot. It's a grappling hook that can pull you towards enemies or away from them.
Yeah, that's
to use an ability, apparently you hold down Y or triangle in conjunction with one of the controller triggers, and assumedly, the other trigger is used to activate your character's ultimate attack, which, in the case of Wilder, is an explosive attack that you charge up at close range for massive damage. So each character is defined by their ability and their ultimate, but another thing tied to the character that you choose appears to be the stats that each character favors. While you can level up stats manually, PC Gamer notes that some characters will still always have more health than others, for example. On that note, the Guardian is best suited as the tank for the group, because they have high HP as well as a passive that favors the usage of shields. Their ability is this whirlwind attack that interrupts enemies so that your teammates can have a moment to shine. Their ultimate ability is Wings of Salvation, which is this crazy dive bomb attack that raises nearby ally defenses and also gives you the option to endure enemy attacks for a limited time.
So basically, this is not Elden Ring. It's a spin-off. I mean, they call it the Elden Ring, but this is not Elden Ring. This is gonna be a whole new game. That's cool. Okay, I see why they not gonna make it like an expansion or something. Like, you're gonna have to pay some money to get this. Okay, I get it. Why not?
After you devastate them. And then there's the Duchess, who's another favorite character of many who played. They have a Bloodborne sidestep dodge, and they also have an ability that reapplies damage done by you and your teammates in the last few seconds. So you can basically double any damage done within that period of time.
Oh, dang.
Their ultimate ability cloaks you and nearby teammates, enhancing your stealth and allowing you to make a quick getaway if needed. The Recluse is the mage of the group, and their passive ability allows them to acquire FP whenever an enemy is slain. Their ability is called Magic Cocktail, and it passively stockpiles different statuses, like poison or fire or ice, whenever an enemy is hit with that type of attack. Then it releases a unique attack that's different depending on the status that was stockpiled. Their ultimate is Song of the Blood Soul, which marks all nearby enemies with an effect that restores health to any player that attacks them. Special thanks to PC Gamer for transcribing all these class abilities so neatly. There are, however, 4 other characters who are less understood at this stage, but
They really put in some time and effort into each of these characters. It seems like it. I'm probably gonna be Mr. Oonga Boom.
Give it to me! Give it to me!
Hell yeah, boy. Come in with a big old axe and a whole bunch of health, boy.
I think I've been able to puzzle out a few based on the trailer footage and other interviews. This, for example, is an archer character who apparently has a sort of third-person aiming mode that's unique to them. We see them summoning a spectral hawk here, and they can do that because they're standing next to a spectral tree, which you can see on the right. This obviously allows you to navigate the terrain in a certain direction for a set amount of time, and From Software thinks this will give you some versatility in how you decide to navigate the map in certain situations. Speaking of spirits, another character is apparently meant to have a spiritual companion, and from what I can see in the trailer, I don't think this character has been shown at all. Next, there's a character that has an innate deflect mechanic that's not unlike the deflect buff that's given by the deflecting hard tier in Shadow of the Erdtree. I'm probably the most excited for this character.
Yeah, that's gonna be sick.
Lastly, IGN notes that there's a character able to raise slabs of rock out of the earth. I think that's the character that we see here.
That's my
Let me know in
character.
the comments which characters you'll be picking. I think there's also a lot of strategy to be had in the interplay between different character abilities, and which group composition will be most optimal is definitely an interesting question as well. So, in addition to enabling you to jump into games easily with these characters, From Software also wanted to make characters like this because each of them has their own unique storyline and backstory that will become uncovered as you play. After selecting your character, you spawn in at the Round Table Hold, which returns from Elden Ring. Here, the characters you didn't choose will be able to be interacted with, and here you can customize each character in ways that we'll get to a little bit later. For now, let's explain what happens after you jump into a session, which you can either do alone
That's just crazy.
or with 2 others by your side. Note that the password system is returning if you want to play with friends, but playing with randoms is also possible, and you'll have to be on the same platform as anyone else you want to play with.
Makes sense.
Band together and prepare to claim.
Oh man, this is freaking cool. I mean, we've all wanted to play Elden Ring with our friends, but you know how the summoning system, and you can only be in certain areas.
That shit was ass.
Yeah, it's a bit tough. So this is cool. It gives you a chance to actually experience the From Software game with your homies. Man, that's sick. That's sick. Let's keep it going.
The life of the Night Lord.
A NightReign session takes place over 3 in-game days, provided you can stay alive that long. And apparently each 15-minute long day
Hold on,
starts
y'all.
like this, with you gliding down from a spectral bird into a land
Hold on, my eyes.
And apparently each 15-minute long day starts like this, with you gliding down from a spectral bird into a land called Limveld. Limveld, according to From Software, is an alternate reality to the Limgrave we explored in Elden Ring. It comes across as this distorted reality, with recognizable elements from Limgrave that will be jumbled up with every new session you create. And on top of this, FromSoft notes that some versions of Limveld will be drastically different from others, with meteoric impacts and swamps and forests of rot and active volcanoes that all diversify the landscapes and offer new threats for you to overcome. Once you've chosen a landing location, you'll be on the ground running with this new animation at about 150% speed. Torrent doesn't seem to be in this game, and instead you can climb cliffs and vault ledges with your character, and you can use your new powerful abilities to kill enemies and power up your character even more as quickly as possible.
Yeah, we definitely
because
gonna need that.
each day only lasts 15 minutes, and when night falls, the map will shrink as the night's tide comes closing in. Apparently, you start each run pretty vulnerable at level
NightReign.
You stupid.
1, but before long, PC Gamer notes that many enemies quickly become akin to nothing more than trash mobs. Presumably, most enemies in this game are probably meant to just be mown down as efficiently as possible by your characters, as you prepare for the true threats that are to come. One such threat is the appearance of Margit, who can invade your world and stalk you at random.
Oh, wow.
Little pillager. Ventot backing the land of wrong. I will swat away any and all who dare approach.
Okay.
Defeat invaders like
man.
Margit, and you'll receive a favor of the night, which buffs your character in some way. Indeed, defeating bosses is just one of many ways to power up your character during a run. According to PC Gamer, loot now includes passive skills like stat buffs and active effects and affinities for certain statuses. Additionally, defeating bosses allows you to sometimes choose from different loot or upgrade options, and in addition to that, loot is also now tiered with that signature color-coded rarity that you'll instantly recognize if you've played MMOs or Diablo. And obviously this is important for this kind of game because it forces you to constantly evaluate new upgrades for your build.
Right.
I like the idea of a tier system for weapons in this game because it adds variety to your playthroughs. For example, if you don't like using a longsword generally, but then you find a longsword that's like a really high rarity, all of a sudden you're evaluating that weapon in a different light, and it might actually be worth using and getting out of your comfort zone.
Right, that makes sense.
So while armor upgrades appear to be absent in favor of choosing different skins for your character instead, weapon upgrades are a really big part of each run. And the equipment screen now apparently has been simplified to just 3 weapon slots for each hand, so that's 6 in total.
So there's
What's
no
worth
weight
noting though
requirement.
is that unlike in Elden Ring, there are no weight penalties or stat requirements for these weapons, so there's
Cool.
actually no downside to equipping 6 weapons. In fact, it's a really important
all
thing
gonna
to
be
do
oonga boongas.
because weapons actually now come with passive buffs as well. And these passive buffs will apply to your character even if they're simply equipped, and even if you don't meet the level requirement for a weapon, which is a requirement that some powerful weapons do have.
Okay.
Should you die in NightReign, you'll be put into a downed state where your teammates are actually encouraged to damage you in order to revive you. From a gameplay perspective, this is a really cool take on the revival mechanic, because it's usually a bit of a drag in other games. Unlike in other games where you have to stand still and revive someone, this allows you to make use of your character's weapons and unique arsenal and skills. What's more, you get the added bonus of being able to slap your friends silly for dying in a dumb way,
right.
which sounds kind of cathartic. If you die during the daytime, apparently you have the choice to respawn with a slight punishment to your character's level. But if it's night, you'll have no such option, and the Ring of Rain will be closing, and that will bring with it damage to those who get drenched. And
damn.
at the ring's close, every day you'll be forced into a randomized boss fight with a challenging enemy that represents the end of that day. Die here in the dark, and you'll be forced to rely on your fellow Nightfarers to revive you in the midst of combat. And if all three of you lose your lives at any time, it's game over and it's back to the round table hold with you all. While most everything that you've collected is lost upon death, one thing is not, and that's a resource called Merc. Merc is a currency that persists between rounds, and it's able to be spent in the round table hold to buy character emotes, customizable skins, and most importantly, relics. Relics are a permanent attribute buff, and each character can slot in 3 relics that can tailor playstyles to your liking. IGN mentions that some relics allowed them to deal extra damage with throwing knives, and some relics boosted the damage that you do with a certain weapon type, which is cool because then you would go into each round hoping to get that weapon. PC Gamer notes that they found relics that allowed their healing flasks to also heal their allies, or relics that marked treasure for them on the map, or relics that made their critical attacks give extra runes. It seems like all of these relics are color-coded as well for different characters, but apparently you can also perform something called a relic rite to switch around their color coding. I'm not too sure I understand how that works just yet. While you're in the round table hold, you're also able to visit a training ground to test out your character's new kit and to prepare for your next incursion. Apparently there's even a codex here that gives background lore on characters and enemies, which is new for a Souls-like game. But once you're done here, it's back out into day 1 of another journey, where you'll have to hope that you can survive. Interestingly, when you do die out in the world, there's a chance that a red corpse will show up in someone else's world, and that's your corpse, and in that world apparently it will be a fantastic source of loot for them. This, according to From Software, is NightReign's unique asynchronous online element, and this is in addition to the usual phantoms that you'll be able to see running around the world with you. On that note, leaving messages for others is apparently a feature that's been removed in this game, and it was removed in the name of speed and fluidity, which are 2 things that are clearly very important priorities for NightReign's gameplay.
Right.
This game revolves around getting as much done as possible in your 15-minute days before each boss fight. Yep. Leveling up, for example, is another thing that's been streamlined. No longer do you need to sit and rest at a site of grace to level up and restore your flasks. Rather, you only need to be in the proximity of grace to do so. And even leveling up has been streamlined to where you can auto-level recommended stats just by mashing a button, and this process will automatically upgrade the stats that suit your character. As noted by IGN, the structure of the game really lends itself to this gradual build in tension with every day that culminates in a boss fight, and then that tension recedes again if you're victorious that night and the Ring of Rain retracts away from you. All enemies killed on day 1 remain dead, and with day 2 beginning, your team is able to get back to exploring and preparing for that next challenge, which will require you to synergize your builds together. And
so I'm thinking, so pretty much you're playing, you start day 1, you beat a boss, then you go day 2, you beat a boss, day 3, and it just gets progressively more harder. So it's like a super Call of Duty zombie mode. Because, you know, in zombies, you know, they add more zombies. The zombies get more damage. They get more armor. They blah, blah, blah. You get, that's freaking sick, but it's so intuitive. There's so many things. It's still open world, and yet it's just, I'm speechless right now. I really am. This is its own thing. I can't think of a game that's like this. I can't think of a game that's like this. Like, of course, there's, you know, basic features that other games have, that this has, but this is way more comprehensive. You know what I'm saying? It's like such a wide range of, you know, content and things that are in this game that's gonna make it its own thing. And man, I see this thing succeeding, and there's gonna be a fucking there's gonna be a dang Fortnite version of this one day. I'm telling you, the people are going to freaking find a way to make their games like this, just like they already are making Souls-like games. Everything's a Souls-like. Everybody wants to make the next Elden Ring or the next Bloodborne. It is crazy.
Come up with strategies to take out the field bosses you wish to face. So I think this process of looting and exploring and fighting creates really good peaks and valleys to the gameplay, as From Software says as well. And they believe that this will condense the experience of Elden Ring, fitting exploration and character building and discovery and challenge into just one short play session.
Exactly.
At the culmination...
But you think about it, when one of your homies die, and it's only day 2, bro. And you're like, dude, how'd you die day 2? And then we beat the boss. Somehow we freaking beat the boss. Clutched it out. We get to day 3. Then we're in day 3. We loot and trying to get all our stats up. And your homie, he can't find nothing. He not getting the stats where he need to be to fight the 3rd day boss. And then we end up dying 3rd because your homie wasn't paying attention, or he misstepped or something. That's gonna be crazy. Or you get spawned into a world that's just, it's hard to find loot. Then the day starts ending, and then you're like, oh shoot! And then by the time you get to the end boss, you can't even beat him. That's gonna be intense, man. There's gonna be so many situations where it's just gonna be up and it's gonna be down. It's gonna be like, damn, bro.
At the culmination of the 3rd day, you'll face the Night Lord, or rather, you'll face one of 8 chosen Night Lords that you would have set out to kill when you first left Round Table Hold. According to the game's director, these final bosses will be gradually unlocked as you progress, and I assume each Night Lord will be harder and harder in difficulty as well. One Night Lord that we've had a glimpse of already is called Gladius, and they're a hound that is capable of splitting into 3 wolves, which suddenly will require your team to use their abilities and contain the situation and just fight 3 enemies at once. I love that many of these bosses appear to be designed for the co-op experience. The Centipede Demon is another example, as their body parts can fall off and fight independently of the main boss, which will keep your teammates busy. The whole thing sounds like it will be a far cry from the co-op experience of the base game of Elden Ring, which often results in your whole team going to town on one enemy who can only really focus on one of you at once. So I'm glad they're taking multiplayer into account at a whole nother level this time. As for the game's replayability, some players have noted concerns with the variety of locations and the variety of bosses in their 4-hour play session, though From Software was quick to reassure them that the full game will have a lot more variation to it.
Nice.
Really, I feel like so much of this game's
if we gonna be
success
paying
or failure
$60,
will come down to that simple fact.
Y'all think about it. We gonna be paying a whole nother $60 for another Elden Ring like reboot. This is a reboot. This is not the base game anymore. This is not the DLC, not the Shadow of the Earth Tree. This is a new game. So I'm sure they got a lot of content put into this. I'm sure they do.
You know, how much replayability can From Software really offer in this one area of Limveld? And this brings me to the inclusion of characters and enemies from Dark Souls in Elden Ring, which I feel like is probably the most controversial topic of this announcement. So this character seems to be the Firekeeper from Dark Souls 3. This spider is the Duke's dear Freya from Dark Souls 2. This is the Centipede Demon from Dark Souls 1. And this is straight up the Nameless King from Dark Souls 3.
Yeah.
A lot of people have been laughing, rightfully so, at the idea of people like me who explain the lore having to explain why characters like the Nameless King have made their way into Elden Ring.
But you could fight it and say this is like they said in the beginning. It's an alternate universe. It's not the universe that we're used to. So I could see all of these monsters and all of these bosses that we've seen in other games could be implemented into this one game, which would make sense because it's an alternate reality. It's not the same as, Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2. You could take them bosses and put them into this game. Fair and simple right there. Fair and simple. I wouldn't be mad about it. I wouldn't be mad. I know somebody got to be mad about something, but it makes sense. Why not use their own IPs, their own characters, and put them into a game? Think of all the players that weren't able to play like Dark Souls 1 or Dark Souls 2 and 3. Never played those games. Never beat those bosses. Didn't even know about these bosses. It's a new boss for them. So
I'm not gonna lie, I find this situation kind of funny as well. I agree that it's a bit ridiculous that they're in this world, especially at first glance. And I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like these characters or enemies have been added to the game for some deep lore reason. We all know why they're primarily here. They're here because this is a way for From Software to reuse their extremely high quality repository of assets and enemies and animations from their past games. Tons of enemies and animations in Elden Ring are already taken from their past games. It's a technique that frees up From Software to focus on designing new games and new assets that matter even more than these ones. And I personally don't have a huge problem with that. I think a lot of people would have a problem with this spin-off game existing instead of a new IP, but I guess cutting corners like this does allow them to focus their resources on new
something
IPs.
new.
So I personally don't really have a huge problem with it, although I don't know the extent to which they're taking bosses from Dark Souls, so there's definitely still the risk that they could overdo this, in some people's eyes especially. For a while there, I was really desperately trying to understand how the universes of Dark Souls and Elden Ring could be conjoined in this way. At the end of Dark Souls, the painter does paint a new world, which could conceivably have been the world of Elden Ring, and what's also funny is that ages ago, George Martin stated that Elden Ring is a sequel to Dark Souls, which
true.
Many took to be a mistake on his part, but in retrospect, that quote almost takes on new meaning now. The official Dark Souls Twitter account has acknowledged this overlap between universes.
In the night, astral foes await. Remnants of a fire that once burned bright. It's remnants of a fire that once burned bright. These are old bosses coming back to light in a new set universe. NightReign. But this is cool. This is cool, man. I don't have an issue with it. If you guys have an issue with it, let me know down in the comments what you think about reusing the bosses. They've always been reusing mechanics. I mean, come on. What more can you ask? They put out quality content almost every freaking time a game comes out with FromSoft name on it. It is always peak in some way.
And it notes that ancestral foes are appearing in this world and that they are remnants of a fire that once burned bright. And in an interview with Famitsu, the lore supposedly suggests that these characters were drawn here from other worlds thanks to the influence of the Night Lord. While it's a bit cheesy to have this overlap between universes, these universes overlapping kind of makes sense in the context of NightReign, because this is a world that is in flux. Most importantly though, NightReign in general doesn't seem to be connected to the canon of Elden Ring.
Right.
Rather, the game's director has called the story completely separate and parallel the world of Elden Ring.
There we go.
But that doesn't mean we
Major
can't still
sense.
enjoy the story of NightReign, and it also doesn't mean that NightReign won't teach us anything about the lore of Elden Ring. Even if it's a separate story, these events are still occurring in parallel to Elden Ring's canon, and thus they can still potentially offer context about Elden Ring's world. Cut content is a good example, like that's not canon, and yet it gives us context about the world and what the developers are thinking in regards to a lot of these characters and a lot of this lore. These shadowy titans, for example, could give us clues about the dead titans in the lands between. The Night Lord could be related to the Nox, and they could be the Lord of Night that the Nox have been anticipating for eternity. The Round Table Hold is likely in opposition to the Night Lord for good reason as well, and yeah, that's all valid lore, even if it's parallel to Elden Ring, I think. What I'm most looking forward to, though, are the character stories, because I think those stories will be good on their own. So, all in all, I'm excited to see what the game's new director, Junya Ishizaki, cooks up here. This director has taken a risk doing something different with this project, and I think it says a lot about the company that they'd trust a new director with a project like this that no one saw coming. So, I'm excited to play it, and I'm excited to die in Limveld and have you guys pick up all the loot that I had on my lifeless corpse. I can't wait. As for my personal thoughts on the game, I'll give those full thoughts when I get a chance to play it, but the reason I'm excited is because this solves the main problem I have with Elden Ring, and that's its replayability. In Elden Ring, once you roughly know where all the items are, replaying the game becomes a bit of a chore because it's just a matter of deciding on the best items for your build, and then you have to commit to this sometimes agonizing speedrun from one side of the map to the other, and there's so many places you ignore in the pursuit of that. It's just harder to get lost and immersed in the world when you're replaying the game. But with NightReign, you can continuously get lost and immersed in this ever-changing world with ever-changing builds, and I think that's the experience of playing a Souls-like for the first time that we all love, and if this game succeeds, I think it will be because it nails that feeling of playing a Souls-like game for the first time and not really knowing where to go, you know? In NightReign, that Elden Ring experience of discovery and challenge can be distilled down to this short, punchy play session that you can also share with friends, and I think that's absolutely more than enough reason for this game to exist. And yeah, I think it'll do really well if they nail that randomization aspect and diversity in the world. Also, I really hope that they add some sort of PvP mode to this game down the line, because the pieces are all there, and people joke about Elden Ring having a Battle Royale mode, but unironically, that would suit Elden Ring really well with its diversity of options for PvP, and I hope this does well and they keep investing in this kind of game, because this is kind of the foundation for an everlasting, incredible Elden Ring experience from a PvE perspective, yes, but adding PvP would add even more replayability, and yeah, I really hope they go down that road. If you want to learn more, please check out all the articles that I've been referencing in this video. I've got them linked in the description, and I appreciate how much info they were able to get. Please subscribe for more Elden Ring. Sorry I sound so tired in this video.
So yeah, guys, I think ultimately, if they're saying it can be randomly generated, the map changes, the spots where you find weapons changes, the boss changes, they can ultimately use all of the bosses out of all of the games, especially with that movement. You could have Sekiro bosses and shit. Imagine that. imagine the replayability, bro. You'll never know what boss is at the end of each day, and there's 3 days. Each playthrough will be totally different. And then imagine the maps. It doesn't just have to be Limgrave. What if they switch it and it's like Caelid, or it's Lake Lemuria? You know what I'm saying? They could just switch it up. Mountaintops, Mountain of the Giants, all that stuff. They could do so much with this game. Creating new classes, bringing in new characters. It's endless. It is almost endless with its potential. And I'm excited what they're gonna do with it. Y'all let me know what y'all think about it down in the comments. If you're looking forward to it, if you think it's stupid, just let me know. I mean, when I think of a Fortnite type game, do I think that this can be like Fortnite? I don't know. I would think if you were doing solo and there's 50 players against each other, what are y'all fighting for? I don't know what they could pull off, but just with what we know now, it looks pretty good. Worth $60 for sure. All right, it's a full-fledged, on its own level type game, and I am excited. I'm here for it. I left the details for this video down in the comments. You guys go ahead, give that person a subscribe. This was a good video. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe to my channel for more content, and I'll see y'all on the next one. I'm Mayo Man.